Good evening, friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Adit. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, then please subscribe to it. If you find my videos interesting, then please like them, share them with your friends, colleagues, and all the other acquaintances as much as possible. So now, friends, today we are going to discuss how expressing ourselves unconditionally and allowing others to express themselves unconditionally is so important. You know, you might have heard about this concept from so many people. You must have already watched some YouTube videos on this about how expressing ourselves is important and why we should express freely, etc. You might have read some articles also on Google. So I'm not going to bore you with the typical stuff. I'll give you a very interesting example from psychiatry, which will help you understand truly how expressing ourselves is so important and what power it actually carries. Now, if a person, for example, suffers from, or we can say that person passes through a situation which is very traumatic emotionally and mentally. For example, there are natural disasters like earthquake, floods, or if that person meets some accident, or there are war situations. So there are, war survivors. It might be common people, it might be soldiers also. Or if that person faces some extreme kind of violence. So it can be anything. Basically, any situation which leaves a very severe traumatic emotional and mental impact on that person's mind. And if that person, like he or she, survives that situation, it so happens that some people are in due course of time they are able to get back to their normal life. I mean, psychologically. But there are some people who are not able to recover or recoup from that event emotionally or mentally. So there is a term in psychiatry, it is called PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of you might have heard about it. So I'm not going to the details here. What I want to talk about is, for such people or for such patients who are not able to recover from that emotional trauma of that situation, there are different modalities of treatment used in psychiatry, and one of the commonly used modality is prolonged exposure therapy. That is, in short form, is PET. So basically, what they do in prolonged exposure therapy is the client or that patient sits with a psychiatrist, and then that patient is persuaded or encouraged to describe that traumatic event or that event which led to the emotional trauma verbally in as much details as possible. So whatever happened that time, the patient is asked and encouraged to describe that in detail to the psychiatrist, how it started, how it happened, how it ended, everything. Now, of course, you can imagine it's a person who is still suffering from that mental trauma of that event and somehow not able to, get out of it. Or some people even try to avoid the situations or the places or the people, who will remind them of that traumatic situation. So that also happens. So, encouraging or asking such a person to remember that traumatic event, and not only remember but to express it verbally in words and describe it in detail. So you can imagine how difficult it must be for that patient initially to go through this treatment. But so what happens is, now that patient, every time that patient sits with a psychiatrist, that patient is asked to say all these things verbally every time. So suppose that patient has 10 sessions with the psychiatrist or 20 sessions. In every session, that patient is encouraged to describe that traumatic event in words as much as possible, according to the emotional state of the patient, of course, but as much as possible, that patient is encouraged to do so. So initially, of course, in the first one, two, or maybe three, four sessions, depending on the severity of that event, the patient, of course, must be finding it very difficult to remember it and then describe it verbally in detail, that too in detail. But then as the sessions progress and as the patient describes the same event every time to the psychiatrist in words, after, say, for example, after fourth or fifth or sixth session, the emotional distress or that mental disturbance which that patient is getting while remembering or describing that event, it automatically starts slowly reducing, because that patient is saying the same things again and again. He's expressing himself or herself fully, freely, unconditionally, and he's not hiding anything from the psychiatrist. And so as he is describing those events verbally in words every time, and he's that patient is not avoiding anything here. He's not trying to hide anything, or he's not trying to suppress anything, but rather on the contrary, he is expressing everything, expressing that traumatic situation freely every time in words to the psychiatrist. So what happens is, when he expresses himself or herself freely, completely, unconditionally, slowly the traumatic impact of that event on that patient's mind, or on that patient's emotions, starts reducing. And say after, for example, after 15 sessions or 20 sessions, if suppose that patient is now in 21st session with the psychiatrist, for example, and he is describing that event in detail, that patient will have very little emotional distress while describing that event, as compared to the amount of distress which he or she had during the first session or the second session, say. So this is the modality of treatment that is called prolonged exposure therapy. As you say, or as you express yourself freely about, even about the traumatic event again and again, the impact of that event on your mind, or we can say the grip of that event on your mind, is loosened slowly, and then you recover. So this is a very commonly used modality in psychiatry. So what I want to convey here to you is that you just imagine the power of expressing yourself and the power of allowing someone else to express themselves freely. So a person who has suffered such a traumatic event, like for example, it can be a violence or a accident, whatever, which has had such a great imprint on that patient's mind. If that such a patient can recover from his traumatic, mental state, we can say, and start living a normal life. So if that can happen, so just imagine if we allow people in our home, or in our or we can say a society, to express themselves freely, so it will have miracles. So that I want to convey, it is expressing ourselves is a very powerful tool of relieving ourselves from the stress. So now I want to take you back to our usual home settings. So as I told you, it is very important that in our homes also, in our families also, we have such an environment where we are encouraged and we are allowed to express ourselves freely. Whatever we feel, whatever we think, whatever we want to do, we might agree with some of the family members, we might disagree with them, whatever, because every human being has his or her own opinions, belief systems, a way of thinking, point of view of looking at a particular situation. So that's going to be different for different people, even if they belong to the same family, or even if they live in the same house, or even if they are a part of a same group of society, whatever. So if we are passing through some difficult situation, we are emotionally distressed, we are, worrying about something, we are anxious about something, and if we are in such an environment which, somehow does not allow us to express ourselves fully, maybe the people around us are not able to understand us, or if it is some friend group, a group of friends, for example, then the friends are somehow, they are judgmental about this person, or they are not able to understand what this person is saying. So it can be, as I told you, it can be family, it can be home, it can be group of friends, anything. So somehow if we are not able to express ourselves in that particular group or in that particular setting, so we try to keep everything to ourselves, and then it goes on accumulating, and over a period of time, that impact of that stress increases logarithmically. I mean, we can say it increases exponentially. But on the contrary, if we are expressing ourselves freely, if we are sharing our tensions or worries with our family members or with our friends, for example, freely, without having the fear of getting judged by them, that really helps us get relieved of that stress to a major extent. I will not say that stress will go away 100% or that worry will go away 100%. I'm not saying that. If it is really associated with some problem or issue in our life, that might persist till that problem is resolved. But at least it helps us to relieve ourselves of that stress or of that anxiety which has accumulated in our mind to a great extent. So it is very important to express ourselves freely, what we think, what we believe, what we want to say. But at the same time, it is very important for that group. That group might be people of that, or members of a family. That group might be people staying in a home or a group of friends, anybody. So it is very important for that group of people to create such an environment in that setting wherein people will feel free to express themselves. They will not have the fear of getting judged, or they will not have that fear of other people developing some misunderstandings or prejudices about them just because they have expressed themselves completely and unconditionally. So that is very important. So the fact that expressing ourselves fully is very, very crucial for maintaining our mental health. At the same time, creating and maintaining such an environment so that people are encouraged to express themselves unconditionally without any fear is also important. So, friends, express yourself unconditionally as well as allow others to express themselves unconditionally. This is the message of this video. So if you like the video, then please share it with your friends, subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you in the next video with a similar interesting topic. Till then, bye bye. Take care. God bless you all. Thank you so much.